Hello, my name is Lizzie Kennedy, and I'm the current coordinator at the Community Writing Center, and would like to thank you for viewing our virtual workshop on writing the College Common App essay. Here at the Community Writing Center, we serve the Great Lakes Bay region through one-on-one consultations and writing workshops, all free of charge. The purpose of this workshop is to learn how to effectively write an essay responding to the College Common App prompts, and the audience is any person preparing to apply to college using the Common Application, especially high school juniors and seniors. For this workshop, you will need paper and a writing utensil to take notes, the sample College Common App essay, and the workshop handout. To begin, let's take 5 minutes to write about one of the following prompts, trying to be as descriptive as possible. Number 1 says, describe your proudest moment. Number 2 says, choose a hobby you love and write about why it's important to you. Lastly, number 3 says to write about a significant event, good or bad, that changed you. The goal is to start brainstorming what significant memories, activities, or moments you could potentially write about in your Common App essay. I recommend pausing this video and writing for the full 5 minutes before moving on to the rest of the workshop. Now that we've finished our quick write, let's discuss what the College Common App essay actually is. The College Common App essay is a narrative essay of 650 words that responds to one prompt from the list of prompts that we will go over in this workshop. These essays are typically due on January 1st of each year. This narrative should be an introduction of yourself to admission counselors outside of simply your grades or test scores. In other words, this essay gives you a chance to personalize yourself and stand out to admissions counselors. In order to make yourself stand out, these essays will focus on your individual personality or life experiences, allowing you to be more memorable to readers who will be reading through hundreds of student essays. While the College Common App prompts can change year to year, the following slides show you the Common App essay prompts for 2020 through 2021. The first prompt asks, some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent so meaningful they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, please share your story. To respond to this prompt, you could talk about your sexual identity, your ethnic identity, or a community you feel that you belong to. One example could be writing about your immigrant background and how you adjusted to American values and ways of life. The second prompt states, the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? If you choose to respond to this prompt, you can talk about a big failure, like losing at something you care deeply about, or it could also be about multiple small failures. For example, you could discuss overcoming shyness when you move to a new school, or maybe developing empathy for a bully after having a conversation with him or her. The third prompt on this slide says, reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. What prompted your thinking, and what was the outcome? To respond to this prompt, think about problems you have noticed, whether around you or on a larger scale. Did you or are you in the process of addressing those? You could also think about a time you went against societal norms and write about what led you to do that. An example could be a football player questioning why it was socially unacceptable to be a singer or a dancer and proceeding to break that social norm by participating in musical theater. This next prompt asks you to describe a problem you've solved or a problem you'd like to solve. It can be an intellectual challenge, a research query, an ethical dilemma, anything of personal importance no matter the scale. Explain its significance to you and what steps you took or could be taken to identify a solution. To write about this prompt, think about topics or social issues that you're deeply passionate about and write about how you came to become so passionate and what steps you're taking or would like to take to address them. For example, maybe you are passionate about drug rehabilitation because of a history of drug abuse in your family, and you could choose to write about that. The next prompt asks you to discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. When responding to this prompt, consider deeper accomplishments that you have learned from. Maybe something a little bit more reflective than winning a state title in volleyball or becoming an Eagle Scout. Which experiences have caused you to grow and learn? An example could be discussing how your first job led you to understand more about personal responsibility and thinking about the future. The last prompt on this slide asks you to describe a topic, idea, or concept that you find so engaging it makes you lose track of all time. Why does it captivate you, and what or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? Now, this is a very open-ended prompt that could go in a variety of directions. Consider passions of yours, whether that's stargazing, baking, or singing, and write in depth about why that topic interests you and how you continue to engage with and learn about that topic. The final College Common App prompt for 2020 through 2021 asks you to share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. Now, this prompt doesn't just mean to choose an essay that you've submitted for another class and submit it to the Common App. This is a way to be non-conventional and memorable, but you have to maintain a focus on yourself. Submitting a book report will not be appropriate. But perhaps you write about how a book character is reflective of your own personal struggles, or discuss your love of poetry through the usage of various poetic forms. This prompt is meant to be difficult and innovative, but must still be easily read by an outside admissions counselor. After going through all of these prompts, think about which topics seem easiest to answer and which ones seem a little bit more difficult. You should ultimately choose to respond to whichever prompt you think is most fitting to your own unique experiences, and that you think that you could write most in depth about. In order to narrow our focus and choose a topic to write about, let's talk through how to avoid cliches. The best way to choose which prompt to respond to is to think about which response would be the most unique and interesting to a reader. You want to respond to a prompt that will allow you to write a thorough, detailed, and personalized response. A common trouble spot students run into is cliches. This could include writing about failure in terms of an athletic loss or injury, or talking about success in terms of becoming a leader within an academic organization. While these may be very real and valid experiences, lots of students share these same experiences. It's possible to write a unique and compelling piece about a cliché topic, but it's usually a better idea to choose more personal aspects, such as your family life or an outside hobby or activity that would not be listed elsewhere. Ask yourself what experiences or traits make you different from others, and consider how you could write about those in a deeply personal way. Before we look at an example College Common App essay, let's go over a few key tips for your writing process. Firstly, brainstorm in advance and edit multiple times. It might be helpful to write a longer version first, such as 950 words, and gradually cut down and revise from there. Usually, 3 to 5 revisions are helpful for refining your essay, meaning it's better to start drafting sooner rather than later. Lastly, a second set of eyes can be super helpful in catching minor errors or identifying areas where you need to develop your narrative more. The next major writing tip to keep in mind is to be specific and personalized in your essay. A good way to do this is to show, not tell your reader what is happening in your narrative. Imagery, word choice, and detail help to paint a picture of what you are writing about rather than simply relaying information to your reader. Using active and first-person voice also helps to make your narrative more engaging. For example, instead of saying, "This example taught me about failure," say, "I learned how to overcome failure through this experience." A good question to ask yourself when you try to be specific and personalized is, how would a reader brand you based on your essay? If it's something generic such as a student who was elected student council president, you might consider digging a little deeper. If it was something like a student who overcame social anxiety to facilitate a campaign for student president and win, that's starting to get a little bit more personalized. As discussed before, a huge tip is to avoid cliches. However, topics are not the only thing that can be too common. Phrases like thinking outside the box or this event was life-changing are so overused that they will appear cliché to admission counselors. Likewise, using generic quotes such as be the change you wish to see in the world is not particularly unique or impactful because so many people incorporate them into their essays. Using your own words is always the best way to keep your writing personalized. The last key tip to keep in mind while writing your College Common App essay is to pay attention to your tone. Because it's a narrative essay, it's not necessary to stay stiff and formal. In fact, it's sometimes better to use light humor or a more relaxed tone, especially if you're writing a more serious essay. This doesn't mean to be grammatically incorrect, but don't feel pressured to use jargon and fancy language like you might in a school essay. The best tone you could use is one that is natural and sounds like you. Now that we've gone over the College Common App prompts, addressed some common trouble spots, and went over a few key tips for writing your essay, let's look at an actual sample response. The Common App essay question that this sample response answers is describe a problem you've solved or a problem you'd like to solve. It can be an intellectual challenge, a research query, an ethical dilemma, anything that is of a personal importance no matter the scale. Explain its significance to you and what steps you took or could be taken to identify a solution. This author writes, of all the problems in the world, there is one that has recently been brought to the forefront. Climate change is an issue that threatens the very existence of our planet, and yet some people refuse to make any effort to try to save our world. While young generations have taken to the streets to protest inaction, there is still little action being taken. I realize that climate change can't be solved by one person and that it won't be solved overnight, but there are two main issues. One is the issue of climate change itself, that our world is warming at an exponential rate. The other issue is ignorance. This author goes on to write, lots of people try to do their part by driving hybrid cars or reducing waste, but others simply refuse to believe in climate change at all. They don't think that humans have caused it or that this is simply another warming period like we've seen throughout history. I know that I'm only a kid, but what if my generation doesn't have a future because people don't want to help out? I love my school, but I would say 95% of the people at my school don't believe in climate change and don't care to do anything about it. At least twice a year at my school, the lunch staff explains how to sort trash, returnable cans, and recycling. We have a recycling program run by the National Honor Society. People just don't care to use it, and it's something I can't fathom. The trash can is right next to the recycling. Did it really make your life easier to put a piece of paper in the trash? The reason why this issue is so important to me is because I am part of the generation that has to deal with the major effects of climate change so far, and if we don't do anything about it, I firmly believe that our world will be uninhabitable. Everyone has a responsibility to do the right thing, and it is widely known that people inherently know what doing the right thing means. Everyone has morals. The problem with ignorance is that it puts the responsibility of everyone on only a few people, which makes it seem like the demise of the earth is inevitable. I'm 17 years old, and I don't know what my future looks like yet, but I know that whatever I will do with my life, I will do it wholeheartedly and with passion. I care about lots of issues, but if humans can't live on Earth, then all the other issues I care about aren't a priority. I can debate about politics and rights, but if the Earth is dying, shouldn't that come first? To solve the ignorance of climate change, we need to be able to have discussions, not fights, with others. Education is a major part of this. I'm lucky enough to go to a Catholic school where we can talk about morals, but I find that on a daily basis we actually don't. And in larger society, it's a kind of taboo to talk about morals and values with others because people are afraid of conflict. The truth is that the only way to get to a solution is to actually talk about issues, not just protest against inaction. Hopefully, awareness and dialogue about issues should lead to action, and action should lead to change. No one person can do it all, but if everyone made small changes in their life and truly talked, together we could make a really big difference. Now that we've read through the sample essay response, let's analyze it to see how well the student personalized their response. The areas of the student's paragraphs that are highlighted in green represent where they address the question posed in the prompt. Instead of simply stating that they would talk about climate change, this student showed the reader what the problem was, not only defining the problem into two main issues, but also using details such as the protests to better develop their description. One of the other key tips we talked about was personalizing your Common App essay and being very specific about why the issue matters to you. This student accomplished this by referring to their own experience at school, adding in details such as the recycling program they use and how students don't participate. This student personalized the significance of this problem by discussing the frustration they feel when seeing others do not do the bare minimum to address the issues associated with climate change. Another key part of this sample response is the student's section about how the issue of climate change should be addressed. The prompt clearly asks students to discuss steps that should be taken, and this student meets those guidelines by discussing the need for conversation and dialogue in order to raise awareness for this important issue of climate change. At this point in the workshop, we have gone over all of the College Common App prompts, discussed key writing tips for drafting your response, and analyzed a sample Common App essay. Now let's take some time to put these ideas into practice by starting to draft a response of your own. Take approximately 5 minutes to brainstorm 3 to 5 bullet points in response to one of the Common App prompts that we went over. This brainstorming could include possible topics, experiences, or moments that you'd like to touch on. Then spend the next 15 to 20 minutes drafting out a sample response. Try to remember the key tips we've talked about. Avoid cliches, stay specific and personal, and use an authentic tone. I recommend pausing the workshop here and drafting for the full amount of suggested time before moving on to the end of the workshop. Thank you again for viewing this virtual workshop on writing the College Common App essay. To recap what we've gone over, it's always best to start brainstorming as early as possible and allowing yourself time to make as many revisions as necessary. Above all, make sure your essay remains personal and unique because you want to stand out among other applicants. If you'd like to schedule an individual consultation with a Community Writing Center consultant prior to submitting your College Common App, please feel free to contact us at ccw@svsu.edu or sign up directly on our website, communitywritingcenter.com.